It's blue. So today we're going to take a look at this TRX4. It's brand new in a box today. Turned up a few hours ago. It's the Mercedes-Benz G500. It's the 4x4 version rather than the 6x6. I've got it because my other two trucks are crawlers and they're highly adapted for crawling. In fact, I've got some videos on my Sport that should pop up here where I've completely changed the geometry before I try and get a new chassis and turn it into more of a comp style crawler. We're going to unbox it. We're going to take a quick look over it, and I'm going to explain why I chose this over the Bronco or the Defender. So, we just open the box. There we go. I could probably do with a better knife. I mean, using a scalpel's probably not the ideal thing. Certainly waving it around in my face on camera seems like a daft thing to do. Although I could probably earn me lots of money on clickbait. Right, I've gone for the blue version. It's the ready to run. I just wanted something I could just get on with. I'm pretty good at taking these apart and putting them back together again, so I'm not too bothered about that. If you're new to crawling and you've never played with one of these before, you're also going to need a battery charger and some batteries, like these, and an adapter as well if your batteries aren't the TRX specific batteries. So I've got a High Volt LiPo 3S here, and then a couple of 3S's in kind of big fat trail for hours, and put it in the front battery mount and crawl up something nicely kind of mode. And then this adapter allows you to convert from the Traxxas plug to a Dean's plug. You can get these for any type of battery, and they just cost a few pounds. If you really want to, you can buy these connectors off eBay and you can solder one together. You also need a charger, and that's 4 AA batteries, and then everything else is in this box. So fortunately, managed to open it at the right end. We've got, it says light replacements, so they're obviously well aware that I'm going to flip this thing and smash it to pieces. Got our controller, and this is the TQI, I think it's the 4 or 5 channel. Much better than the one that comes with the Sport. It's got the gear on the side, some things for the settings. I'm not really sure what the menu does because I've never actually had this version before. I've got a switch for my front and rear locking diffs, obviously throttle and steering. There's a thing here saying neutral 50-50, 70-30, so I think I can flick this and then I get more throttle control, which is really nice because the Sport doesn't have that option, and with the gearing that it's got, it can be a little bit sort of quick off the mark when you're crawling. It's not the slowest, smoothest kind of thing. Whoops. I would do far worse than that. So before we get the truck out, it comes with what looks like some nice black bits to put on your fenders to make them look as though they're made out of carbon fibre, and some body pins, which is useful. I think they're spare body pins, which is great because I lost 2 out of the 4 ones on my Sport last night, and some tools. Now, the tools that they give you are enough to get you going, but definitely invest in sort of decent tools for your RC. This is a Wearer one that I use for screws that are a bit sort of chewed up, mainly because it's got a really good grip, but the handle's not very big. You can get the more traditional RC tools that have a bit of a thicker handle, and if you've over tightened something, or like me, you've used green Loctite thinking that you're never going to undo it, get it undone again without having to heat it up with a soldering iron or a gas torch. So that's great. And then we've got the truck. You ready? That is very, very blue. Right, don't need the box anymore. Oh. Now that is a proper Chelsea tractor. And for the Americans over there, you're probably not aware of the term of Chelsea tractor. Chelsea is a borough, I think, of London that's extremely rich, and everyone around there seems to drive 4x4s that used to look like they came from a rural farm. More so, they seem to have, you know, big blingy wheels and nice big V8s in them, because obviously in America a V8 might make sense, but in the UK, where it takes hours to drive a few miles, you really don't need a huge V8 4x4. You generally just need your feet or a bike, because everyone else is driving 4x4s and you can't get anywhere. Right. Oh. So far I've only played with the Sport. I've never actually seen the inside of a TRX up close, other than when friends have rolled theirs and the shell's fallen off. They've wrapped the shell really nicely, actually. We'll just start with the shell. Not only did it have a nice thick plastic around it, they've put lots of protection on the top to stop it from getting too torn, so we'll take that off because I'll do worse to this than the couriers could ever do. This, probably after its first run, will be nowhere near as shiny. And one of the light pieces has fallen off. We'll get the super glue out later and fix that. Either I'm too tall or my chair's too high, so apologies if the top of my head's getting cut off. But, you know, due to COVID, don't have any hair anyway because I just can't be bothered to go to the barbers. Right, that just clips back on, but then the whole thing comes out. In fact, yeah, that bit has been broken in transport, and that one has been broken in transport, and that's probably why they give you spares. Easy fix, nothing to worry about. If this is your first crawler and you get these kind of things, this is just, hopefully the camera will pick it up, it's just a tiny piece of plastic, tiny bit of super glue, it'll be reeked. And to be honest, I'll probably smash them off anyway. The body is lovely. Interestingly, it's quite a lot lighter than I was expecting. Now it's in no means a lightweight body, but most of the weight seems to be in the front, where they've put all this this detail in. I'm not sure if it shows on camera, but we've got recesses to put a light kit in. Even looks like you can put the running lights in, so you can really sort of bling it up there. This grill's really detailed. Yeah, it might be a bit too pretty for me. We'll sort that on Saturday. Internally, it looks like all of these black pieces are actually, yeah, they're all screwed on, which is really nice. The shell itself, well, a couple of little marks, which is a tiny bit disappointing. I'm going to guess that because I got this cheap on the internet, that this was a return. It definitely looks like someone's had this shell out before and then returned it, because where it was covered previously, that covering's not here and it looks like it's had a bit of a scratch. But it's a Lexan shell. It's going to get cracked, it's going to get scuffed, it's going to get fixed with hot glue and repair patches and all sorts, so I'm not too fussed. I've just noticed as well that at the top here, in this really quite cool spoiler bit, although again this is a little bit marked, there's some lights here and there's a hole in the bottom where you can put lights in, so you can you can make this look extremely blingy. And yeah, definitely as well, the indicators, they look like they can be lit up as well. So all in all, that's not bad. Now I've got a lot of lights here to kind of make this look good, and when I hold it up to the light, yeah, I'm seeing it sort of shine through the shell a little bit. I've got to say, like, the paint job is not as good as my Sport was, and I think what's been happening is they've got this tag on here, and this tag has been banging about inside the shell and has just nicked it. But that said, when you put it down and there's no, well, 250 watts of light blasting through it, you can't see that, so it's not the end of the world. Right. Wow. So when I got my Sport, the main differences between this and the Sport is this has the 2-speed transmission and the locking differentials. Because this is the Mercedes Chelsea Tractor licensed one, it's got these much bigger wheels, but I think they're a 4.6 in size, so they're the same size as a normal sort of Canyon Trail. They look just a little bit thinner, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because with the weight of the truck, yes, you've got a smaller footprint of the tyre, but you can put more weight on that footprint, so you might be able to put more pressure in a smaller area to get some traction. Where it might come unstuck is these lugs are really not spaced apart that well, and I expect in mud and loose surfaces it's going to be just as useless as its real life counterpart. But I don't care, because I bought this to jump and launch and bash and play with, and when I want to climb up something properly, I will get a proper rock climber out. Let's have a look. Now, these are different, these side bits. So the Sport doesn't come with the fenders, so it doesn't have this lovely front battery mount here. All you need for this is a Velcro strap, and you put a Velcro strap in here, and then if you bought the right size batteries, which I think I have, you can squeeze your battery sort of in between, which then puts the weight of your battery up front rather than down the middle. I mean, on a truck with this many servos and things on, doesn't make as much of a difference as it would on a Sport, but you're certainly moving a good sort of 170, 200 grams, which is about 7-8% of the total weight of the truck to the front and over the front wheels. So as you climb up, until you get to the limit of the suspension geometry, you've got something pushing you down, and anything that pushes down the front helps the front bite, and you're all good. That's very strange to be able to turn one wheel and have the other wheel turn in the opposite direction. That's because it's an open diff, because it hasn't been locked up. I'm just going to see if one of these fits. Now, these are a high volt LiPo, which means they charge to just over 13 volts, which you wouldn't think is a huge amount, but it means that these two batteries weigh roughly the same, give or take about 10%. And this one's a 3600 milliamps. This is a 2200 milliamps. So with the higher voltage, you can get a better energy density, which means you get more runtime out of a smaller battery. And depending where you're putting your battery, if you are mounting your battery further back in the chassis, that can really help with weight balance, because you can get a long runtime without affecting, the crawling ability. I'll put these down gently rather than throw them like I throw everything else. Always treat your LiPos like they're about to explode, and then you generally won't have any issues with them. If you're not scared of your LiPos, then they will probably have some issues because you're not paying attention to the problem. Another cool thing on this is the bumper. The front bumper and the rear bumper actually seem further in than the Sport, and also I need to find something metal. Ah, no, I think that's plastic. I'm not sure. Oh, it is plastic. Oh, that's disappointing. I thought that was a metal underguard. But what is really cool, and I really like this, is these fake metal side steps. They're pretty awesome. And these exhausts, completely fake exhausts, but they've even put, you know, an actual, it actually runs sort of where the engine would be. So that's really cool. A little warning about, you know, learn how to use the ESC, and yeah. Always read the manual. I've read the manual, I know how this works, so I'm not too bothered. So yeah, this has got 2-speed gearbox, so different to a Sport in the fact that it's got 3 extra servos, a few more gears inside there. It's got the fenders, which stop your shell from getting dirty inside, but they don't, because your shell sits wider, and so mud flicks off and fills your shell up, and then when you get enough mud in your shell, it falls back down and makes all of this dirty. So they make it look a bit more scale, but they're not as functional as people will say. These huge body posts are nice and strong, albeit I would have expected them to have a bit more pushing through so it doesn't wobble so much, but maybe that wobbling stops them from snapping off. And then, yeah, you know, standard Traxxas battery tray. If you're not aware, you can flip this round and it gives you different heights because it's just a bit curved there. And that is kind of the overview and the unboxing. It's got portals compared to other crawlers. That gives it a lot more ground clearance. One of the problems though with Traxxas is they then put a smaller tyre on because they've raised everything, and what they're trying to do is lower the centre of gravity and sort of compensate for the suspension geometry, because the link mounts are so high, by having a slightly smaller tyre to stop it from tipping over. For this, I'm going to keep it on the standard tyre because I want to test them out, and they feel a little grippier than a Canyon Trail out of the box. So I think, I mean, they're quite stiff, but I think once this rubber's sort of broken in a little bit, it's had some time to heat up and cool, I think they're going to be quite nice tyres, and I might consider them. I might consider actually buying more of these when I need to replace them, rather than putting it onto the Louise Rowdies, which are totally not scale, but an amazingly performing tyre, which I've actually done a review on, which should be popping up here somewhere. Yeah, the steering servo is the standard Traxxas one. I didn't have any trouble with the one on my Sport. The servo horn on these is made out of plastic, and the C-hubs and the knuckles and everything else are made out of plastic, but they're quite strong, whereas the servo horn isn't. So I've got some options here just to show you. I've got the standard Traxxas one, which is the 824-7X, which is just the metal version of their standard one. That's what's going on this truck, because I'm not upgrading the servo, so I don't need a servo horn that clamps. My other recommendation, if you're going for a stronger servo, so on my Sport I either run the Hones Hobbies or the AGF RC servo, and with both of those they're putting out well over 55 kilos of torque, so they tend to eat anything that's not built strong enough, like servo horns and steering links and knuckles and lots of other stuff. I actually run my Traxxas Sport with the plastic knuckles and the plastic C-hubs, but a really strong servo, and so far I haven't had any issues. When I did run some brass knuckles, I started to have issues breaking off panhard mounts and a few other things. So if you are running a strong servo, go for the GPM kit. Go for this steel version, not the aluminium one, and it comes with a nice clamping servo horn and the hardware to install it, but also a different steering link. And what I like about this steering link is it's adjustable when it's on the car. So with this, what you do is get your servo horn as straight as possible, put this link on, and then there's a hole in here that allows you to wind out the link, which changes the length of it, which then changes your steering, and that's really useful because you don't have to mess around with servo trim and endpoints and everything else. You just chuck it on, mechanically adjust it, and then you can leave the servo to be in its absolute natural neutral position rather than a false neutral position. Yeah. So I'm going to pop the body on, and I might have a little play. This is just my kids' playroom with the table cleaned up, so I don't really have anywhere to drive it yet, but I will be driving it on Saturday. I'm probably going to post this video tomorrow, so we'll see. But yeah, let's get the shell on. Yeah, that's pretty cool. The suspension's been set up with the usual sort of Traxxas, you know, trail kind of settings, so it feels pretty light on the shock oil. On a crawler I would run a lot thicker oil, but this having the 2-speed gearbox and going a lot faster, I'm going to leave it as it is because it needs to be able to react quickly. One thing I might do is drop the ride height just a little bit to make it a tiny bit more stable. It does kind of feel like, even though it's settling a bit on the suspension, it doesn't feel like there's a huge amount of sag in there. And I tend to prefer my trucks at about 50% sag, mostly so that you've got upwards and downwards travel from ride height, which is especially useful when you're trying to sort of manoeuvre through things that might tip the truck off balance. By just having a bit more upward movement, the body stays a little bit flatter. On side hills it can catch you out depending on how you set up your truck. If you're running a lighter oil, it will definitely mean that you'll tip quickly rather than having the slow gradual one. But given that this has sort of quite blingy tyres that are quite square edged, I think this thing's, as it goes, it's just going to pop. It's not too bad, but it does feel like one of those trucks that's going to give you one warning and one warning only, and if you don't react instantly, it's just going to tip over. All in all, yeah, I can't wait to play with this. So the main reason I've gone for this over the Bronco or the Defender, or I think it's the new Blazer, is the Defender's a slightly longer wheelbase. It's also really heavy up top, and I wanted something that was quite trail, but also quite capable when I do want to have a bit of a play. I don't want it to be so tippy that it's almost comical. Now, the Blazer and the Bronco have a slightly, just marginally better approach angle, but what they don't have is the same departure angle, and the back end on this actually has a really, really good departure angle. In fact, the approach and departure angles for this are better than the Sport out the box. So there's something to be said for the blingy body. It does make it quite capable, but again, until I mess about with it, which I don't intend to do, it won't crawl as well as a Sport will, because of where the weight is, because of the height of the body and everything else. But getting into things and getting out of things, it just has a little advantage there. Also, having the sort of front skid plate as well as the bumper, and quite cool, the bumper actually sits behind the Lexan. If I drive into something, the Lexan will take all the rubbing and the scratching, but hopefully shouldn't crack because the bumper's there. But you've also got like the skid plate as well to kind of just give it a bit of protection underneath and not hang up on rocks and catch like the Sport or the Defender bumpers can. Because this is all, not sure if you can see it, because this is all smooth, you'll start catching when you get to the steering link, which hopefully you won't. By that point, hopefully you've got your tyres up on something. If you're catching your steering going on anything, then it's all gone horribly wrong, and you want to probably have a look at how you're driving, which is something that I say to myself all the time. So just a little test of driving up a 54 degrees slope. So yeah, that departure angle is way better than a Sport. I would have hung the bumper up there easily. Right, well, if you've enjoyed this video, if it's been any use to you, please consider giving me a like and subscribe to the channel. Still trying to grow it, so who knows what's going to happen. And if you've got any questions, drop me a comment down below. Thank you very much. But yeah, that departure angle, way better than a Sport.